With an eye on 2016, one question looms large for the GOP. Should the party be more conservative or libertarian? The standard bearers of those two positions look to be Chris Christie and Rand Paul at the moment. The New Jersey governor was in Aspen Thursday, where he was asked about national security, and he fired this shot.
This strain of libertarianism that's going through both parties right now and making big headlines, I think is a very dangerous thought. President Obama has done nothing to change the policies of the Bush administration in the war on terrorism, and I mean practically nothing. And you know why? Because they work. I love all these esoteric debates that people are getting in.
Senator Rand Paul, for example?
Well, listen, you can name any number of people who've engaged in it, and he's one of them.
The Kentucky senator thought it fit to fire back, and he did so with this tweet. He said, quote, Christie worries about the dangers of freedom. I worry about the danger of losing that freedom. Spying without warrants is unconstitutional, end quote. All right, Greg, I'm going to start with you, because if we don't and we get to this side of the table, you'll never get a word in edgewise. So can you tell me your thoughts on this overall?
What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah.
Take it from me. I know.
Now they're already mad.
I know.
No,
it happens every day.
I forfeit my spot to these guys.
It happens every. Do you have a point?
Yeah, I think that this rift is the best thing that has happened to the left and to President Obama. Greenwald was a genius because he's cleaved the adversaries, and instead of having a healthy debate, we're having one side accusing another of shredding the Constitution, the other side accusing them of being soft on terror. What law enforcement does is embrace reasonableness, and this is what has to happen in this debate. You do a disservice to the citizens if you position yourself on the very edges of alarm. And the first casualty in a TV feud is reasonableness. We either talk about tyranny or we talk about terror from above. The point is you can have both. Mm-hmm. That's what the whole essence of reasonableness. What they talk about, what law enforcement talks about, is reasonableness. It can happen. What happens is we have these groups, and we're at fault for this. We put ourselves at the edge of every argument. Oh, my God, there's going to be another 9/11. Oh, my God, you're shredding the Constitution. Actually, no. Just shut up. It's in the middle in here.
Well, it's interesting because I think the mainstream media, Eric, would like us to have to, like Republicans, to have to choose. You're either this camp or you're that camp. Yeah. And actually what we really probably want in 2016 is a composite candidate made up of lots of different people. But your worlds collided between Rand and Christie, and your thoughts on this?
My worlds did, and I just have to figure this out. So the rule of law is now dangerous to Governor Christie. You lost a fan in me, sir. And anyone else who believes that the Constitution is up for interpretation, especially by a governor, you can't interpret it your way. It was written. It's not living and breathing. It's written. It's a rule of law. So let me get this straight. Rand Paul is dangerous, but President Obama and Carlos Danger are okay in your world right now. Governor, you said you look at people in the eye who've lost loved ones in the World Trade Center. I was in the World Trade Center in '93 when the bomb went off. I watched the planes go into the World Trade Center in '01. I watched friends burn in the World Trade Center. I watched people jump out the window. I think I have an idea of what terrorism looks like. And it's not innocent Americans being data mined by the NSA. It's Islamic terrorists. Stick to them, and we're all okay.
So now you're not for Christie anymore.
I am done with him.
Because you were with Christie, you were against Christie now.
Mark Levin warned me. He said you're going to regret the minute you got behind this guy. And you want to know something? I do, not for the reasons you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your compassion because, again, like you said, you have friends and everything, and I think anybody who's in New York feels that way. But I don't think Christie was talking specifically about data mining, and the fact is, in order to find a needle, you need a haystack. And the problem with Rand Paul is that he thinks that the needles just show up. Like the needles came on September 11th. No, if you had the haystack before, you could have figured out where those needles are. That's all it is.
It'd also be good to know what they're going to do with the haystack when they find the needle.
Exactly.
And that's
I agree.
That's the question that we all want, and that would be a good thing to follow up.
Can't this be, it doesn't have to be an either-or discussion, right?
Exactly.
Why can't it be both? Why can't you have people like Chris Christie, a former U.S. attorney, and this is what U.S. attorneys do. They want every good tool at their fingertips to be able to prosecute terrorists, and that is what Chris Christie did, right?
I'm for finding them before and before the prosecution.
Right? The purpose of the Fourth Amendment is to trip up prosecutors, to make sure that government doesn't get too big. But what's wrong with people like Rand Paul saying, hold on, let's have a debate about civil liberties, especially in the era of Obama? I just say this, to me, was welcome to the 2016 primary. I think Christie was trying to differentiate himself politically as well from Rand Paul. This is his background. Paul has a different take, and the new poll showed that Rand Paul is now leading in the Republican primary field. So
let's ask Bob about that, because for 2016, do you believe, I have two questions for you. First of all, do you believe that they're both actually putting their toe in the water to see about 2016? And also, what do you think the Republican mindset will be if you had to prognosticate to 2016? Will it be more conservative or libertarian, or when it comes down to voting?
There's been a strain of libertarianism running through the Republican Party going back to Dwight Eisenhower, but in through Barry Goldwater, it split, an enormous split in '64. The party was taken over by more libertarian forces against the forces of the more moderate and conservative Republicans. So this is nothing new. It's becoming something brighter on the stage of politics, because you have two people who are pretty good at what they do. We haven't had a Rand Paul, who is an out-and-out libertarian, in the Congress for a long time, and so he raises questions which have been there for a long time in the Republican Party.
His dad. We have Ron Paul.
But he was never taken seriously. This guy's taken seriously.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Can I point something out? We read, Dana, and we read, is it going to be more conservative or libertarian? I think that's inaccurate. I think Rand Paul is conservative and libertarian, and I think Chris Christie has lost his conservative creds over this and some of the other things he's doing with the Second Amendment in New Jersey.
But do you think in this,
but specifically relating to terrorism, I don't think you can say that Chris Christie's lost his conservative credentials. I really don't. His record as U.S. attorney is pretty incredible. I know people are upset because he was somewhat praising President Obama for following in the footsteps of Bush, but I guess I don't really see it this way.
I was surprised on the outreach today of how many people were, they actually don't like either of them. Some folks that I talked to, they maybe 2016 seems a little too far out for them, but they're thinking, why aren't we talking about tax reform? Why aren't we talking about figuring out how to bring more competitiveness into the healthcare system? Why aren't we focusing on entitlement reform? The types of things that conservatives typically will come to the ballot to vote for, nobody seems to be talking about. Maybe it'll be Fourth Amendment, but I kind of doubt it.
I'll tell you one reason. If you listen to Rand Paul carefully, he continues to bring up Syria as an opening shot across the bow, saying, do not do that. Do not go into that country. Libertarians have, for the most part, been very, very reticent about committing U.S. troops overseas, and for good reason. And there's always been a place for that debate. The people like the neocons, who were willing to go in anywhere, anytime, and do anything, needed to have a force working against them, and the libertarians have done that.
But it's not only that, but they also have, Greg, I'll get you back in here, you had a lot of liberals actually joining on the Syria piece and also on the NSA vote that happened this week. You had a lot of Democrats actually voted with a certain number of Republicans. So is there a new force building?
I mean, let's face it, it kind of shook a lot of allegiances up, and you had, like, Eric, palling around with Glenn Greenwald, which I never thought I would ever see. I mean, that be like me moving in with a lemur, which I did for 6 months, actually. No, but the interesting thing is, like, how libertarians can embrace the idea of the NSA, the Verizon piece and the prison piece, because libertarians know that freedom requires force, and force requires intel. You need intelligence. If America's a house, you got to make it a castle. The sad thing that bothers me about this whole debate, and then I'll shut up. In the old days, the right would be pissed off about the leaks. If there was a leak that made us vulnerable to our enemies, we would be pissed. But instead, we're pissed off at the government for lawful actions meant to protect our families.
Lawful.
No, I know we disagree on that. I believe it's lawful.
That's the line that
how do you know it's unlawful? How do you know it's unlawful?
There's nothing unlawful about it. You can wave that all you want. It's not unlawful.
No. The reason
I'm going to wave my BlackBerry.
Where's the probable cause taking the information and data mining innocent
There's
Americans?
There's a difference between...
You're confusing the two.
All right, let me just, can I point this out, whether we can do this again or we can do something else. Dana, I know you're getting frustrated, but this is important.
Excuse me?
On the Republican side, Chris Christie going there was a big mistake. They need to be uniting. There's a Ted Cruz and a Rand Paul who are conservatives, who are very similar, but they're not fighting each other. They're not taking shots at each other. I don't think there is